The Harmattan wind arrives before the sun does. It sweeps across the red clay rooftops of Auburn village like a slow exhale, carrying with it the smell of dried leaves, palm oil smoke, and something older. Something that has no name in any living tongue. The trees bend eastward, all of them, as though bowing to an unseen procession. A single black feather spirals down from a sky with no birds in it and lands in the center of the village square, where the wedding canopy has already been erected overnight. Palm fronds. White cloth. Strings of cowrie shells hanging like teeth. The village is beautiful in that particular way that things are beautiful just before they shatter. Women move through the early light with clay pots balanced on their heads, their wrappers vivid, orange, indigo, burnt gold. Children chase each other between the legs of elders who stand apart, watching the canopy sway. The elder women, those whose hair has gone silver, whose backs carry the weight of everything they have survived, stop their walk and stare at the canopy without speaking. One of them, Mama Adoni, the oldest of the council, presses 3 fingers to the center of her chest and closes her eyes. Her lips move but make no sound. The groom, Adewale, emerges from his family compound. He is tall, clean-limbed, dressed in osook, the color of deep water. His family trails behind him, his mother fussing with the hem of his agbada, his younger brothers laughing, his father walking with the stiff pride of a man who has finally gotten something right. Adewale's face is open, luminous. He is a man in full bloom, unaware that the season is about to change. He takes his place beneath the canopy and looks toward the path where the bride will come. He waits. The black feather lifts from the ground without wind and floats toward the forest. She comes from the east. The procession moves in a column, her attendants first, 6 young women draped in koa and white, scattering dried petals that the harmattan immediately consumes. Then the drummers, their rhythm deliberate, almost ceremonial in its restraint. And then, at the center of it all, Ife. She is extraordinary. Not beautiful in the way that invites admiration, beautiful in the way that commands silence. Her skin holds the blue-black depth of deep forest at midnight. Her neck is stacked with coral beads that clatter softly with each step. Her bridal wrapper is white-edged with gold thread, and her geli is folded into the shape of something between a crown and a weapon. Her hands are painted in intricate ocean designs, spiraling patterns that curl past her wrists like the roots of ancient trees. She walks without hurry. She walks without looking at anyone. And she does not blink. The procession enters the village square and the drums slow. The women ululate, that high, piercing joy sound that carries for kilometers, but something in its echo feels hollow today. Adewale turns at the sound and sees her, and his breath leaves him entirely. His mother grips his arm without knowing she is doing it. Ife moves through the crowd like water moving around stones. She passes the elder women and does not acknowledge them. Mama Adoni opens her eyes at the exact moment Ife passes, and what she sees in the bride's face makes the old woman take one careful step backward. Ife's eyes are open, wide, still, fixed ahead, and they do not blink. Not once. Not in the harmattan wind. Not when a child darts across her path. Not when a drumstick slips and cracks against the ground like a gunshot. Wide. Still. Dry as desert stone. Mama Adoni turns to the elder beside her, old Baba Segon, the village diviner, his cowrie bag clutched in both fists, and the two of them exchange a look that crosses 40 years of shared knowledge in half a second. The procession reaches the canopy. Ife takes her place beside Adewale. He turns to her and his face carries every tender, foolish, magnificent thing that love produces in the young. She turns to him. She looks at him. And still, she does not blink. He smiles. He sees nothing wrong. The officiating priest is a man called Baba Ojo. He is ancient in the way that certain things are ancient, not aged, but worn into permanence, like stone shaped by a river. His white wrapper hangs simply, and his own staff is the height of a man, topped with a carved eye that has watched generations of births, deaths, and the complicated ceremonies in between. He stands before the couple and begins. The ceremony is performed in the old way. The obi knot is split and examined. Its halves are correct, 4 lobes, a good omen, and Baba Ojo nods and holds them up for the crowd to see. Approval ripples through the gathering. Women clap their palms twice. Men nod slowly. But as he passes the kola to Ife, Baba Ojo's hand stops. Just for a fraction of a moment that most people miss. He is looking at her eyes. His own eyes, roomy, heavy-lidded, ancient, sharpened with sudden, startling clarity. He sees the stillness there. The absence of flutter. The quality of something that is performing being alive rather than simply being alive. He continues the ceremony. He has no choice. To stop now would rupture something that cannot be repaired publicly. He continues, but his other hand, hidden in the folds of his wrapper, is moving. His fingers work the cowrie pieces he keeps always on his person, reading them by touch the way a blind man reads faces. 3 times he counts. 3 times the cowries tell him the same thing. His expression does not change. His voice does not waver. Behind him, Mama Adoni has moved to the edge of the ceremony circle. She is speaking quietly to 2 younger elder women, urgently, without turning her head, her eyes locked on the couple. One of the younger women covers her mouth. The other begins moving through the crowd toward the eastern path, toward the forest, quickly. The crowd sees none of this. The crowd is watching the beautiful bride and the glowing groom and the ceremony unfolding exactly as it should. A child throws more petals. The drums pick up again. Ife accepts her portion of the kola nut. She places it between her lips. She does not chew immediately. She waits. And then she swallows, and as she does, something moves beneath the awesome markings on her wrist. Just for a moment. A ripple. Like something pressing outward from beneath the skin. The man standing closest to Ife, a distant uncle of Adewale's named Connor, sees it. He steps back. He says nothing. Beneath the baobab tree at the edge of the square, the elders convene. There are 5 of them, Mama Adoni, Baba Segon, Baba Ojo's senior apprentice Tond, and 2 elder women whose names the village knows as Aya Bongo and Aya Ero. They form a tight circle. Baba Segon empties his cowrie bag onto a piece of folded cloth on the ground and they all look down at the pattern the shells have made. The pattern is catastrophic. Baba Segon points to a cluster in the corner, shells that face downward, dead side showing. His finger moves to the center, a single shell that has cracked clean in half, which should not be physically possible because he had checked them that morning and they were whole. Mama Adoni crouches with difficulty and picks up the cracked shell. She holds it to the light. Inside the crack, barely visible, is the faint discoloration of something old, a stain the color of rust and river water. Aya Ero takes a breath and speaks with her hands. She signs out a name, an old name, the signs too ancient for most living people to read. But the elders know it. Mama Adoni's eyes close when she sees it. When they open, there is grief in them. Old grief. Grief that was stored here long before today. Baba Segon knows the name. He straightens, his old back protesting. He looks toward the wedding canopy where the ceremony continues. He looks at Adewale, this young man who does not know that his wedding day has been decades in the making, that it was designed and intended long before he was born, by hands that should have decayed to dust but have not. Tond is already moving. He breaks from the group and walks quickly, not running, because running would alarm the crowd, toward the compound at the far edge of the village where the sacred objects are kept. His face is set in the tight, bloodless expression of someone performing an action they know is already too late. Mama Adoni remains beneath the baobab. She looks at the canopy. She looks at Ife, who is perhaps 50 meters away. And even from this distance, even with her failing eyesight, Mama Adoni can see what the whole crowd cannot see, that in the last 10 minutes, through wind, through smoke, through the scattering of petals and the proximity of other bodies, the bride has not blinked once. The old woman's jaw tightens. She begins to pray. There is a river 12 kilometers east of Obren, where the water runs black in the dry season. The village of Iditan sat on its banks until 40 years ago. Now there is nothing left of Iditan but the blackened footprint of foundations in the soil and a name that the people of Obren do not say aloud. The history between these two villages is the kind that reshapes rivers, that changes where water is willing to go. 40 years ago, during a dispute over land and water rights that the powerful of Obren had deliberately engineered, the village of Iditan was burned. Not in anger, in cold, political calculation. The headman of Obren at the time, Adewale's grandfather, a man named Old, had signed the document that stripped Iditan of its water rights and its land. The fire came within a week. Most of Iditan fled into the forest. Some did not make it. Among those who did not make it was a woman named Ewit Graveby, her husband, and 6 of their 7 children. The 7th, a girl of 3 years old who had been sent to collect water at the moment the fire came, survived. Alone. Feral with grief. Taken eventually by traders and sold 3 times before she found herself, at age 7, in the household of a woman known only as Awo, a practitioner of arts that the living do not discuss in good company. That girl was Ife. And Awo spent 33 years teaching her everything. Not all of it was darkness. The medicine, the plants, the architecture of the human body and what moves through it, this was knowledge, and knowledge is not dark until the hand that holds it decides what to do. Ife learned everything. She was the greatest student Awo had ever shaped. And when Awo died, she whispered one last instruction into Ife's ear, and Ife wept, not from grief, but from the recognition of a door finally opening. This is the ceremony that has brought her here. This is the 40-year debt she has come to collect. The critical moment of the ceremony arrives. Baba Ojo stands between the couple with the sacred cup, fired clay, painted in the old way, filled with palm wine mixed with honey and 3 drops of blood from Adewale's own palm. He offers it first to Adewale, who drinks without hesitation, his eyes on Ife's face, reading something there he cannot correctly identify, a depth that he interprets as mystery and romance and which is, in fact, neither of those things. Then Baba Ojo turns to Ife and offers the cup. She takes it with both hands. Her grip is precise. Her fingers close around the clay and the crowd watches, as they always watch this moment, this oldest of ceremonies, the drinking that means yes and forever unbound. She lifts the cup. And Mama Adoni, 40 meters away beneath the baobab tree, stops praying and simply watches with the still, focused attention of someone who has run out of options. Ife does not drink immediately. She holds the cup at her lips and in this pause, this strange, extended pause that Adewale interprets as heightened emotion, she closes her eyes. For the first time. The crowd does not notice because it is a natural thing, a tender thing, a woman overwhelmed at the threshold of her new life. But the elder women notice. Aya Bongo makes a sound in her throat. Baba Segun grips his cowrie bag. Ife's lips move against the rim of the cup. Barely. A murmur that is not audible, a word or words that are directed not outward but inward, into the clay, into the liquid, into the specific architecture of intention that she has been building toward for 3 decades. She drinks. And when she opens her eyes, they are different. Not visibly, not obviously. The crowd sees nothing. But Adewale, who is closest, feels something shift. Like standing in a room where the temperature has dropped 2 degrees. Like hearing a note that was not played by any instrument. His smile flickers. Somewhere in the village, a dog begins to howl. Ton returns from the sacred compound at a run. He is no longer bothering with subtlety. In his arms he carries a wrapped bundle, cloth the color of dried blood, tied with 7 knots of varying complexity. He moves through the crowd and the crowd parts for him because there is something in his face that instructs parting. The bundle is held away from his body at a careful distance. Mama Adoni meets him at the edge of the ceremony circle. He unwraps one layer and shows her what is inside without taking it out. She looks. She nods. She takes the bundle from him and turns toward the canopy. The ceremony is nearly complete. Baba Ojo is speaking the binding words, the invocations that call the ancestors as witnesses, that thread the couple's lives together in the sight of the sacred. He speaks quickly now, because the elders converging on his ceremony have told him, without words, that time is the most critical resource remaining. Ife stands at the altar and her hands, at her sides, are moving. Almost imperceptibly. The awesome markings on her wrist and palms are shifting, the ink lifting, rearranging itself, the spiraling patterns unwinding and rewinding into new configurations. This is not visible from more than a meter away. But Adewale can see it. He is looking at her hands. His brow furrows. He opens his mouth and closes it. Mama Adoni reaches the edge of the canopy. She steps inside it. The air changes. Ife's head turns, slow, precise, like a mechanism, and she and Mama Adoni look at each other. The moment holds. The old woman and the young one, 40 years of history compressed between their gazes like a stone between 2 hands. Mama Adoni sees everything she feared. Ife sees the recognition and is surprised by it, a flash of something crosses her face, an emotion she has not felt in years, the ghost of being seen. Then it is gone. Mama Adoni opens the cloth bundle. Inside is a piece of broken pottery, old, impossibly old, painted with the same awesome patterns that cover Ife's hands. Ife goes absolutely still. The pottery shard is from Iditen. Mama Adoni did not know it when she sent Ton for it. She sent him for a sacred object of protection, the strongest in the village's keeping. But Ife knows what it is the moment she sees it, because it is from the floor of her mother's kitchen, pulled from the ash by survivors who did not know what they carried, passed between hands for 40 years until it arrived here, tonight, in the hands of this old woman who is standing between Ife and everything. The crowd has not erupted yet. The crowd is confused, suspended in the collective uncertainty of people watching something they cannot interpret. The drums have stopped. The ululating has stopped. Even the harmattan seems to have paused. Adewale looks between his grandmother, Mama Adoni is his grandmother, a detail that lands now with the weight of an axe, and his bride. He sees the pottery. He sees the patterns on his bride's hands. He sees that they match. He does not understand what this means, but his body does, because his legs have taken a half step backward without his permission. Ife's composure, that magnificent, terrible composure that has not cracked in 10 minutes or 10 years, cracks. Not in grief. Not in fear. In rage. It moves through her like lightning through wet ground. Her hands come up. The awesome markings on them are now actively moving, the ink alive, the pattern cycling through configurations that are not decorative but structural, the architecture of a working. The working she has spent 30 years building. The working she came here to complete. The air inside the canopy thickens. The cowrie strings overhead begin to rattle without wind. 2 of Adewale's brothers back into each other and then back out of the canopy entirely. Someone in the crowd screams. Baba Segan shouts something ancient, a countermeasure, a word, and throws a handful of ash from his bag in a wide arc. The ash hits the air inside the canopy and suspends there, floating, refusing to fall. The working is not violence. That is the terrible thing. The thing Ife has built across 3 decades is not a weapon in the way that destroys bodies. It is a weapon in the way that destroys legacies. What she came to Obren to do, what Marine Adewale was designed to enable, is the unmaking of the old bloodline's prosperity. The reversal of everything that was taken. The calling back of every harvest, every child, every favorable season that the village of Obren built on the bones of Iditan. She came to bind it and reverse it and walk away. And she needed to be inside this ceremony, inside this contract, inside this oldest and most powerful of social and spiritual architectures, to do it. She needed to be a bride. Mama Adoni understands this because Mama Adoni is old enough to understand everything. She lifts the pottery shard and holds it between herself and Ife. The effect is extraordinary. The working, which has been building, which is nearly complete, which has been assembling itself in the charged air of the canopy like storm clouds gathering, stutters. The floating ash drops 2 centimeters and stops again. Ife's hands, raised and walking, tremble. Because the pottery shard is from Iditan's kitchen floor. Because it carries the memory of the morning before the fire. Because Ife's mother's hands shaped that clay. And Ife, who has not allowed herself to feel the grief of what she lost because grief would have made the walking impossible, Ife is feeling it now. It moves up through her feet from the red earth and through her hands from the vibration of the shard, and it is enormous. 40 years of grief, compressed and now released, is a force that staggers her. She staggers. Adewale catches her. Automatically, instinctively, because he loves her and she is falling, and whatever else is happening here, she is falling and he catches her. His arms go around her and she goes rigid in them. This touch, this simple and unconditional touch from a man whose grandfather burned her home, is not in any version of the plan she built. She looks at him. He looks at her. The crowd is in chaos behind them. The elders are working. The Harmattan has returned. And Ife blinks. The blink breaks everything. Not the walking is still there, built into the air, waiting. What breaks is the membrane Ife has maintained between what she came here to do and what she is. For 33 years she has been only the mission. Only the architecture of revenge. The child who walked back from the riverbank to find smoke where her family had been, that child has been locked away, managed, useful as fuel but dangerous as self. Now she is out. Now she is in Ife's chest like a fist. The crowd has cleared the immediate area around the canopy. People cluster at safe distances, some running, some unable to run, transfixed. Children are being pulled back by their mothers. Adewale's father stands frozen at the edge of the canopy, his proud face undone, watching his son hold his bride while elders he cannot fully understand perform rites he can barely see. Mama Adoni takes one step closer and speaks. She speaks with her whole body, not just her voice, her hands, her posture, the weight of her age. She speaks the name of Ewit Greveby. Ife's mother. The name said aloud, in the open, in the village that killed her. Ife makes a sound. It is not a scream and not a word. It is the sound of a structure collapsing, controlled, load-bearing structure that has held tremendous weight for a very long time coming down all at once. She pulls away from Adewale. She stands alone beneath the rattling cowrie strings, the suspended ash around her beginning slowly to fall, and she looks at the pottery shard in Mama Adoni's hand. Boba Segun completes his word. Ton drives a stake into the earth at the north corner of the canopy. Aya Ero pours something dark and liquid into the ground at the south corner. The working begins to dissolve. Ife can feel it going. 30 years disassembling in 30 seconds. The markings on her wrist are fading, not painfully, but with a finality that is worse than pain. When they are gone she will be only a woman. When they are gone she will be only the grief without the direction. She goes to her knees. The red earth of Obren receives her. The elders complete their work as the sun reaches its highest point. The ceremony canopy is empty now except for Mama Adoni, Boba Ojo, and Ife, who remains on her knees in the red earth with the awesome markings fully faded, her coral beads pulled around her on the ground where the strings broke, her geli listing to one side, the crown becomes something ordinary, undone. Adewale is outside the canopy. He has not left the immediate area. He stands with his younger brother's hand on his shoulder and he looks at the woman he was going to marry and he understands, now, in the way that a person understands something that will take years to fully process, that what happened today is both more and less than it appears. Mama Adoni lowers herself to the ground beside Ife. A woman of her age and history does not kneel easily, but she kneels. She sets the pottery shard on the earth between them. Then she puts both her weathered hands over Ife's bare ones. She holds them. And she does not speak, but she does not need to speak, because what she is communicating is older than language. It is the specific acknowledgement of an elder who knows what was done to a child and cannot undo it and is not going to pretend otherwise. Ife looks at the pottery shard. Her mother's kitchen floor. The last morning. A small girl walking to the river with a water pot while behind her, something was already being decided by men in another village who had never seen her face. The tears, when they come like the rains come in this part of the world, not gradually, not politely. All at once. Complete. Baba Ojo stands over both of them and he is praying, his own staff held high, his old voice steady, and what he is praying for is not simple and not easily categorized. It is something between justice and mercy and the specific spiritual work of closing a wound that was opened before he was born. Outside the canopy, the crowd stands. Still. Watching. Beginning, slowly, in ones and twos and then in groups, to understand the shape of the thing they are standing inside. Adewale's father collapses. Not in the dramatic way, in the quiet, crumbling way of a man whose understanding of his own history has just been revised at its foundations. His sons catch him. He is sitting on the ground and he is holding his own face in his hands, and the younger men around him look at each other and at the canopy and back at each other, and the weight of it moves through the family in a visible wave. The village council assembles at the edge of the square without being summoned. Word has reached the farthest compounds with the speed that significant events travel in small places. Old men and women arrive still carrying whatever they were holding, a cooking pot, a hoe, a length of rope, because they came immediately and without transition, and they stand in the light of midday and they look at where the wedding was and at what is there now. Baba Segun addresses them. He speaks slowly and completely. He holds nothing back. He speaks the name of Iditon. He speaks the name of Ode. He speaks the name of the document and the decision and the fire. He speaks names that most of the people present have only heard as rumors, as things their parents mentioned and then went quiet about, as the texture of an unease that the village has carried in its foundations for 40 years without fully examining what was buried there. The council listens. They listen without interrupting because the gravity of the moment is stronger than any custom. Two of the council members weep openly. One man, older, who had a grandfather who was in Iditon that morning, sits down in the dust and stares at the ground as though it has just told him something. Inside the canopy, Ife has stopped weeping. She sits with her knees drawn up, the pottery shard in her lap, and she is not done feeling everything she is feeling. She will not be done for years, perhaps ever, but the acute phase of it has passed into something more chronic, more manageable. Mama Adoni is still beside her. Neither of them has moved. Adewale enters the canopy. He does not ask permission. He moves through the opening in the palm fronds and he comes to stand in front of Ife and Mama Adoni, and he looks at the woman who came here to dismantle his family's name, and he stands in the silence with that knowledge and does not run from it. He crouches. He looks at the pottery shard in her lap. He has been told, in the last 40 minutes, in whispered fragments from the elders outside, enough of the shape of it. Not all. He will not have all of it for a long time. But enough. Enough to understand that the grief and the working and the plan are not about him, have never been about him, that he is both collateral and inheritor, blameless and implicated in the way that all inheritors are. He reaches out. He does not touch her. He touches the pottery shard. Lightly. With one fingertip. As though asking. Ife looks at his hand on the thing that was her mother's. Then she looks at his face. And whatever she sees there, The openness, the willingness to touch the thing that indicts his own bloodline, does something to the grief. It does not lessen it, but it shifts its relationship to the present moment. Grief without any witness is one thing. Grief with a witness who does not look away is another. Mama Adoni watches both of them. She says nothing. She is old enough to know that certain things must be allowed to find their own way. Outside, the village council has made a decision. Boba Segun is speaking the terms aloud, formal acknowledgement of what was done to Iditan. Restoration of the name. A ceremony of remembrance to be performed at the riverbank within the month. Land returned to the surviving descendants, which means, now, specifically, one surviving descendant. One woman kneeling in a wedding dress in a canopy in the square of the village that burned her family. The terms are not sufficient. They cannot be sufficient. No terms could be. But they are true and they are said aloud, and in this village, on this earth, what is said aloud becomes part of the record of things, and the record of things matters. The afternoon passes in the way afternoons do after enormous events. Slowly. Heavily. With a quality of light that seems changed, the same sun but angled differently, or perceived differently, or both. People move back to their compounds and then out of them again. The cooking fires are restarted. Children who were running earlier now sit in small quiet groups, feeling the heaviness of the adult world without being able to name it, which is often worse. The wedding canopy comes down at Mama Adoni's instruction. The palm fronds are placed carefully to one side. The white cloth is folded. The cowrie strings are untangled from where they fell and coiled into a clay pot. The pot is sealed and given to Boba Ojo for keeping. Ife is given a room in Mama Adoni's compound. She is not free to leave, not because she is held by force, but because there is a process now, a communal process of accounting and acknowledgement, and she is at its center, and leaving would be a different kind of unfinished. She sits in the small room and the old woman brings her food and water and then leaves her alone, which is what she needs. She eats. She did not expect to eat here in peace. She did not expect peace of any kind to be available in Obren. The food is cassava and palm soup, the taste of which sends her back to somewhere she cannot fully reach, a sensory memory that predates everything, that belongs to a kitchen floor that is now a shard in her lap. Adewale sits with his family. The conversations are painful. His father, recovered from his earlier collapse, is accountable in the way that men of his generation are accountable when forced, imperfect, partial, defended at the edges but penetrable at the center. His grandfather is 2 years dead and cannot answer for himself. The family carries the weight of this unevenly, as families do. Adewale himself sits apart for a long while. He thinks about love, and what it looks like when it is weaponized, and what it looks like when it is real, and whether the feeling he had this morning, that open, luminous, foolish feeling, is something he has any right to anymore. He decides, eventually, that feelings are not something one has rights to. They exist or they do not. His exist. He will do nothing with it. But it exists. 3 days after the wedding that was not. The ceremony at the river happens at dawn because that is when the old protocols say it should happen, at the moment between night and day, when the membrane between what is and what was is at its thinnest. The entire village comes. Adewale's family comes. The council comes. Even those who only heard the story secondhand come, because they understand that they are being asked to witness a repair, and witnessing is a participation and a responsibility. Ife comes last. She is dressed simply, no coral, no geli, no awesome markings. A plain wrapper, the deep blue of deep water. She walks the path to the river alone, and the village parts for her, and this time the parting is not fear. Or not only fear. There is something else in it. Something that has no clean name in any language but that moves between people when a great wrong is being, if not corrected, then at least seen. The river is black with sediment this season. It moves slowly. At its bank, Baba Ojo has arranged clay bowls of river water and obi and white kola and the specific flowers that grow only in this region and that are used for the ceremonies of the dead. Not to call the dead of Iditen are not being summoned, because the dead should not be disturbed without great need. But to acknowledge them. To say, in the formal language of the living, that they existed and that what was done to them was known and that the knowing has a cost. Ife stands at the water's edge. Baba Ojo places a clay bowl in her hands, water from the Black River, 3 white petals floating in it. He speaks the names, Ewit Grave, her father. Her 6 siblings. The 37 other people of Iditen who did not make it out of the fire. 37 names, spoken in full, into the air of the village that has refused to say them for 40 years. Each name lands on Ife like weight, like rain, like something she has needed and did not know she needed. She stands under the weight of them and does not collapse because she is, for all that has happened, a woman of extraordinary endurance. When the last name is spoken, she tips the bowl and the Black River water with its 3 white petals flows back into the Black River and the petals spin in the current and move downstream, toward where the river eventually widens and disperses, toward the part of the world where bodies of water become impossible to trace back to their sources. Mama Adoni comes to stand beside her. Then Adewale's father, walking heavily, settles himself on the opposite bank with the weight of a man performing public penance. Then the council. Then the village. The sun comes up. Ife looks at the river and she is not finished and she will not be finished. There is no ceremony powerful enough to finish grief of this magnitude, and she knows this better than anyone, but something has shifted in the architecture of her body, in the structure of the next decades of her life. The working is gone. The mission is gone. What remains is simply herself, in her grief, at the river where her mother sent her the morning the fire came, standing in a village that burned her family and is now, for the first time, in the presence of its own history. Adewale stands on the bank slightly apart from his family. He is looking at the river. He is not looking at Ife. But his presence, deliberate, witness, there is itself a statement. The river moves. The petals are gone. The names are in the air. The harmattan has stopped. In its place, from the east, from the direction of where Iditen was, there is a new wind. It carries no smell that can be identified. It is simply air, moving. But the elder women lift their faces to it and close their eyes, and Baba Segun opens his cowrie bag and looks at the pattern the wind makes in the shells, and what he sees there makes him close his eyes too, for a long moment, and when he opens them there is something in his expression that is not quite relief and not quite hope but is something in the territory between them. Ife turns from the river. She faces the village that burned her and that is now, for better or for complicated, changed by her presence. She does not smile. She does not weep. She looks at the village with open eyes, and for the first time, she blinks.